Okay, I think we can get started. Thanks everyone so much for being here. So appreciate everybody making it out for this. My name is Natalie Weigler. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Voter Engagement and Recruitment Coordinator in the ASWW Office of Civic Engagement. We wanted to first start out by saying that we're going to be recording this meeting recording this seminar so that this can be made available to everybody. So I'm going to start recording now. Okay, we are recording. So this will be shared with everybody, so you have the opportunity to access it after tonight. So we'll make sure to share that with everybody. We wanted to uplift that the ASWW Office of Civic Engagement and Western Washington University is equal opportunity institution and office. We hold nonpartisan values and work to represent all students. So we just wanted to make that clear as we start. If you have any questions, you can feel free to use the Q&A function. There will be time at the end to make sure that all your questions are answered. And the chat is open where just panelists can see the chat. So if you have any technical difficulties or anything, feel free to utilize the chat function. If you want to keep up with what the Office of Civic Engagement is doing after tonight, be sure to follow us on all of our social medias. I will put all of our accounts in the chat, and we'll be sure to post the recording of this on our YouTube channel as well. So you can have access to it there. I now have the honor of introducing our amazing speaker tonight, Kristina Martins. Kristina is originally from San Diego, California, and came to Bellingham in 2016. She has since been an active member of our community as the founder of the Mission Accomplished social media platform, which sheds light on community equity projects and creates their own content. Kristina was a co-host of a local TV show called the Bellingham Tonight Show, interviewing local community leaders and people running for office. And she's working with the Chuckanut Health Foundation and Su Ling Zhao to create the Whatcom County Racial Equity Commission. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Take it away, Kristina.
Hello, thank you so much. Everyone who is here. This is my very first keynote ever. And as I was going through it again for the 75th time and making more edits last minute and all the things, I realized that you are about to get quite an interesting walk through my brain, realistically, of how I got to where I am. And I hope some of it is helpful to you. I hope you walk away thinking about things that you, in ways you necessarily haven't before. And I just hope it helps shed a little bit of light on how Black people are feeling in the world. And please know that I have not spoken with all of them, but I do know that those other Black Americans I have crossed paths with usually have had similar experiences to mine. But I also hope it just inspires you to be the best you. There's not a mold that I'm trying to get you to be more like me. I want to empower you to be the best you. And if that inspires you to take on the world with me, I welcome it. So here we are, and here we go. I'm calling this presentation Things They Don't Teach You in School, a Guide to Modern Activism. I did not wake up one day with the sole purpose of becoming an activist. It was something that happened semi-gradually and only because I found a voice within myself that was dying to speak out about the racial transgressions in America. I want to be clear up front that my path may not be the right one for you, and it is not the only one that you can take, but I can only speak to what has worked for me, and that's what we're going to talk about for the next hour-ish. I did not come to these decisions overnight. And to be frank, a lot of my choices were made in the heat of the moment, and that will not work for everyone. Over this time, I will retrace my steps and shed light on things that have inspired me over the last few years. Looking back, I now know that I was more privileged than many. Even with my difficult childhood, everyone is fighting their own demons, and if you take nothing else away from this, I hope you remember that forever. I was lucky enough to be raised with amazing female role models, a pack of multi-generational women from varying backgrounds who supported each other through thick and thin and celebrated every success, no matter how small. Many people underestimate the value of early childhood experiences, and at another date and time, I can fill you in on what upstream work is and the Racial Equity Commission that I am currently working to build here in Whatcom County with an amazing team. Sorry. This is not going to be your average keynote with everything there is to talk about nowadays. It was hard to pick a place to start. At the same time, when and if you believe you are called to do activist work, I will say that mindset is everything. So today we'll be walking through 7 shifts of mindset I have had since my early 20s, which I credit for me being right here, right now, speaking with you. Lesson number 1. Oh no. And we're off to the races with that not being in the right order. Well, we'll circle back around. I'm sorry. This, by the way, is the first time I have done a PowerPoint presentation in a very long time. So high technology, and please bear with me. Here we go. And my mother is going to enjoy this immensely. Lesson number 1 is everyone started out at the same exact place that you did, and they did not know anything either. And that is me, probably 6 months of age, with my beautiful mother. I was also born just a baby, and I knew nothing. What am I doing here? I honestly don't know. To be frank, I feel like one of those people at the beginning of a weight loss video saying, I never thought it could work for me, but it did. And if it worked for me, it's going to work for you. And to my heart, I honestly believe that to be true. The first real big discovery I had as an adult was realizing there is no official adulting handbook that they give you when you turn 25. The only real difference between you and the people that you call your heroes is their perseverance, which is why their names are known. And to prove it, here are some more embarrassing photos from my childhood. There we go. First time with Santa, my senior high school picture. I too was born just like you. And if it worked for me, it can work for you as well. I was raised by a single mother who, fortunately and unfortunately at the same time, was unaware of the serious racial divide that plagued our country, both then and now. It was a double-edged sword being raised by a single white woman who came from a vague place of privilege, but who was also a single mother at the age of 26 to a mixed-race baby who she accidentally moved to one of the most racist parts of San Diego County. My entire childhood, I hated how different I was. And to open the gate, I will tell you the story that I have of when I first realized that me being of color was going to make my life more difficult. And I will almost guarantee that every BIPOC person you know has a moment where they just realized it. And I was 5 years old, and I was playing with 3 other 5-year-olds who lived on our block. So there were 4 of us total. All 3 of them were white, and we were hanging out in the front yard of a girl's house. We were in the backyard. We were having a great old time, spending hours together. And then we decided to go and play in her room. And we all started sitting on the floor, and she assigned seats to the other 2 girls in the room, but not me. I was left sitting on the floor. And I asked why. And she said, to look back now, the fact that her parents told her to say this is probably the most sad thing about the story to me. This little girl's name was Alicia, and when I asked why I was left sitting on the floor, she said that her parents were nice enough to let me in the house. And because of that, there was no need for me to touch or sit on any of the furniture. And I remember realizing that that was not right. I can sit on the furniture in my house, and my family is white. And I just needed to get up and leave. And walking home about 8 houses, just tears streaming down my face. And my mother having the same realization at me at the same time, that the world was not going to treat at least me fairly. So you have to learn to navigate differently. And so to you, I say, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And this is a quote from the great Arthur Ashe. I am also a huge tennis fanatic, and if you know nothing about him, please Google that when this is over. And I feel like that's a very interesting title to the slide that I have below. But if you want to make a difference, you have to have money. And luckily for us, money is everywhere. You might not be sitting on a whole lot of it right now. I certainly am not, but I have been using what I have to get what I need to do the work that I think is valuable going forward as I embark on the activist journey. And this is the first glimpse into how my mind works. I just want to change the way you think, and I want to change the way that you navigate in the world, and I want to change the way that you perceive the world and the way that you think the world perceives you. So if I can leave you with this chant in your mind at all times, I will be so happy about that. And I'm now remembering that I also need to share audio. I am so sorry, y'all. Living in a Zoom world. We need to change the way we win. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So I hope that this is helping and enabling you to do that, to change the way that you win. Oh no. I am so sorry that somehow my slides are out of order. There we go. I'm so sorry, y'all. Thank you so much for bearing with me. This is obviously not something I do on a regular basis. All right, moving along. If I am the first one to be telling you that the system is rigged, I will be available for tutoring sessions after this event. And here's a spoiler alert: money cannot buy happiness, it is happiness, which is why they have so much. And they tell us that all we need to do to also achieve financial independence is to cut avocado toast out of our diet. And we know that that is not true. And why do I find this specific point important? It's because only people who don't have money have to worry about it. The bandwidth and the availability in your brain that opens up when you have to, the bandwidth and availability in your brain that you don't have available when you have to worry about whether the lights will stay on or if you have enough money to keep your kids fed until the end of the month is the first step to leveling up, not having to worry about that. When that is taken care of and those bills are paid all the time so you can survive, you now will be able to take the next step. And I am not saying that this is on you at all. Again, I'm saying the system is rigged and there's truth in the cycle of poverty. But hopefully we're going to change the way you think, and we're going to change the way you win. Why am I telling you this? Because if you decide to embark on activism work, I really, really, really want you to understand your value before you start saying yes to things. As you start to make a name for yourself and waves in the community, there are going to be a lot of organizations that are going to ask you to do a lot of things for free. But if you are part of a marginalized population, BIPOC, LGBTQAI, a person with a disability, anything else that I have not covered here, you have experience and insights that the other segments of the population want to learn and hear about, but you took time, effort, and humility to live through those. What you have lived through holds value, and I want you to think about it like this. Would whatever entity who is reaching out to you expect an accountant to come and work for them for free? The answer is no. You absolutely deserve to be paid. And I am going to tell you to tell them what your value is worth. And then when you decide what that amount is, I really hope you hear me nagging in the back of your mind that Kristina would tell you to ask for 20% more. No one is ever going to give you the things that you don't ask for. This is going to be an interesting segue, and I'm going to stop the video a couple times just to make a couple points. I feel like this video is loaded with more insight than even Adam Carroll knew when he was opening this up. And that is the longest video where I'm not talking that I'm going to make you watch. It was just so chock full of really relevant information to how my brain works, especially now that I'm in a realm where money is incredibly important, not just for my survival, but to doing the work that I want to do. And then I included this meme because I'm 100% usually always one of those Black women on the bottom rung working for companies that are saying they're committed to diversity, and yet I am the only diversity that I see around me. And that's why it was so important for me to include so much of that last video that we watched, because he really nails it on the head. If you are BIPOC, you are going to have to work, we already know, double the amount of time, and you may have to put in 3 to 4 times the effort. It is not the fault of any of the white people in which the system is rigged. It just is what it is because we've allowed it to get to this place. So to combat this, my only practical advice is to take every shot that you're offered. It's not going to be easy, and a lot of you will actually be shattering those glass ceilings, but that will be opening the door for everyone else to follow in your footsteps. It's never fun to be the first one. Just ask Hiram Rhodes Revels, the first Black man elected to Congress in 1870. It's hard to be Cori Bush in Congress right now. I can't imagine what it was like to be Hiram in 1870 in America. And the other thing that just struck me as a person who was raised by a single parent on welfare, hand to mouth, counting every penny, was the security or the relief that you have and security that surrounds you when you have an idea like this and you're just able to go to the bank and take that $10,000 out in cash on a whim. So your kids, you can teach your kids a lesson, which is great. And I am sure that Adam worked very hard. I'm not trying to take his win away from him, but I want you to get to a place where if you decide to have this experiment with your family members, you can do it. That is the dream life for me, to just be able to not have to worry about the money. And if that's the dream life for you, that works too. I am now actually going to tell you a tale, the Mexican fisherman and the investment banker. And this parable just struck me so hard and really speaks to me about American exceptionalism. And I want you to know that you don't have to buy into it. An American investment banker was taking a much needed vacation in a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked. The boat had several large fresh fish in it. The investment banker was impressed by the quality of the fish and asked the Mexican how long it took him to catch them. The Mexican replied, "Only a little while." The banker then asked why he didn't stay out longer and catch more fish. The Mexican fisherman replied that he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. The American then asked, "But what do you do with the rest of your time?" The American fisherman replied, "I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take a siesta with my wife, stroll into the village every evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life, senor." The investment banker scoffed. "I am an Ivy League MBA and I could help you. You could spend more time fishing and with the proceeds buy a bigger boat, and with those proceeds buy a bigger boat, then you could buy several boats until you eventually would have a whole fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to the middleman, you could sell directly to the processor, eventually open up your own cannery. You could control the product, processing, and distribution. Then he added, of course, you would need to leave the small coastal fishing village and move to Mexico City, where you would run your growing enterprise. The Mexican fisherman asked, but senor, how long will all of that take? The American replied, 15 to 20 years. But then what? Asked the Mexican. The American laughed. Well, that's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO and sell your company stock to the public and become very rich. You could make millions. Millions, senor? Then what? To which the investment banker replied, then you could retire. You can move to a small coastal fishing village where you sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife, stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine and play your guitar with your amigos. Excuse me. And that I say, whatever you deem is a happy life for you is in fact enough. Farms are the way America eats, doctors are the way that America survives, teachers are the way that America learns, and parents are the way that Americans are raised. Any of these, all of these, any combination of available jobs which makes you happy to attend and keep you safe, warm, fed, and fulfilled are exactly what you should be doing. But if you dare to dream bigger, I fully commend and support you. What are my big dreams, you ask? Well, when I left San Diego for Bellingham, I wanted to be the next Oprah. There she is in all of her glory. Not necessarily for the fortune, but for the fame and the incredible amounts of good a person can do when they have that kind of credibility. Oprah is 100% a self-made billionaire and one of the first people who really looked like me that I ever saw on television. She's also one of the most philanthropic people on the planet, and my plan was to follow in her footsteps and do as much good as I could with the power that I would amass. My goals changed drastically last year after the murder of George Floyd. The public killing of yet another unarmed Black man in America really shifted my course. Being old enough to remember the Rodney King beating, which was one of the first recorded and then publicly available videos of police officers' egregious abuse of power, was a life-altering and heart-wrenching, and something that they did their best to sweep under the rug, and they still do. Seeing it happen yet again to George Floyd broke me in a new way. Spending my entire life reading the same stories over and over again, where the only thing that changes are the names of the victims, truly removed the last veil over my eyes. No one is coming to save us, and we must get into places of power to do the work ourselves, which is why my new goal is to run for president in 2036. Are these huge goals? Yes. Do yours have to be this large too? No. These ideas excite me and call to me because I know in my soul I can make incredible waves and changes for the better at the helm of these seats. Luckily for you, we only need one future Oprah and one president in 2036, and both of which I have already called dibs on. So if money were no object, which it isn't because it's everywhere, and no one could tell you no, what is the biggest and brightest future you can envision for yourself? What waves do you want to go out into the world and make? And this is slight of a dig, but I want you to carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white male. And when I say that, think Donald Trump Jr. I don't care what color, shape, size you are. Walk into every room with the confidence of Donald Trump Jr. and people will believe that you belong there. If it worked for him, it'll work for you. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. If you decide to get out into the world, and even if you do, or if you don't decide to follow in any of these footsteps, no matter what, when taking big swings in life, you will in fact fail hard a few times, and some of it will be public, but it is not a big deal, I promise, especially in the age of the 24-hour news cycle and social media in general. I say this to help put into perspective that when you take big swings and miss, or you completely fall on your face making big mistakes, it will not kill you, but it is also part of the process. Every decision you've made from the moment you took breath has had consequences, good and bad. But what we take for granted every day is how we already won the jackpot. To be you right now at this day and age is a literal miracle. Please know that I take global warming and the overpopulation of the earth incredibly serious, but we are so caught up in the day-to-day struggles, which I am not belittling, but we're also caught up in how grueling life is, that we honestly forget how insignificant the amount of time that we spend alive really is on the scope of the universe. The history of the universe is often overlooked and underappreciated. So in true Kristina Michele brain segue, we are going to watch a clip from Neil deGrasse Tyson's remake of Carl Sagan's The Cosmos. You being here, already a miracle. I've got one more space video for you. And I have such a clear memory of the first time I ever watched this next one that both frightened me and gave me a very odd sense of peace at the same time. The universe is so huge. And as far as we know, time goes on forever. So you have to respect the minuscule amount of time we have on Earth, and at the same time, realizing that we are not the center of the universe, illustratively, i.e., not everyone is paying attention to you, but also human beings aren't on the radar of the universe, literally. So now that, for some of you, I hope that was a revisit. For others, I bet you were seeing it for the very first time. Now that you have that perspective, or you remember that that should be the perspective of everything that we're living through together, the world is immense and goes on forever. And we as humans are literally just the blink of an eye. What do you value that you want to spend your time on with this blink of the eye that you have? Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm also working with two screens. So now we're going to have an even more awkward segue than before, I think, which is lesson number 5, victors tell the history. Now that I've put in perspective how the universe works, are you surprised that the things that they have taught us haven't served us well? When I was 22, I was 22 when, I was about 22 when I first learned about the Tulsa race massacre. And my immediate feeling was of betrayal. I was a high school honor student who took and passed all of the AP tests. Why wasn't this in any of my books? As medical and science leaps abound in the arena of as medical and science makes leaps and bounds in the arena of preserving and extending human life, the last remaining guard of the old days takes longer and fights harder on their way out the door. We are currently living in a time when a plethora of reigning champions are going to have to pass their accomplishments on to their successors. It is going to work in a few different ways, but as we assess the wreckage over the last few decades, one thing seems glaringly obvious. Donald Trump was one of the first, not one of the last. We are now about to see an overflow of aging socialites who have squandered the wealth their families made off slavery, the Holocaust, or the perpetual orchestration of war. But once the old guard has passed, and if by some miracle we can finally learn from our mistakes, the meek shall inherit the earth. It will not happen overnight. And the way that humans currently treat the planet, it may not happen before we self-implode. But the only thing that we know to be true is that the span of human history, the only thing that we know to be true from the span of human history is that no dynasty lasts forever. The American white supremacist heteronormative patriarchy is breathing its last dying breath. And I'm recruiting as many allies as I can to fill the gaps with people who strive for equality for all as the old guard falls. The story of America is literally a tale as old as time. Thank you all for hanging in there with me. And I bet some of you do love voting. Did anything from that last video of the Roman Empire sound important or familiar? Because we are living through it again right now. And to that, my point is no one has the answers. Everyone is out there just making decisions as they see fit. And those of us who refuse to learn from the past will always make those mistakes in the future. As no women or people of color were consulted when the Constitution was written, it would seem as if it were due for some updates. If you think you could be doing a better job in a position of power than people who are already in those seats, I cannot tell you enough to get in there. The fact that it has been the status quo for almost the entire history of humanity, that only men are at the top, is part of the reason we are in this mess. Do not be afraid to buck and bulk at the system. It is broken. Which brings us to lesson number 6. Do not waste your shot. And it is also better to be lucky than to be right. This is not the future that I had for myself. And I never thought I would get into politics. I'm a real estate agent with an associate's in psychology, and to say that I have been overwhelmed by the process would be an understatement. Luckily for me, this is not rocket science, and I'm also so lucky that I was born at this time and place. Even as bad as things are now, I know I never would have made it for more than a week as an American slave in the 1800s. The universe, which is forever and eternity, could have brought me into the world at any time, but I am lucky enough to be here right now and in a position to have my voice heard at a time when historically the thoughts, opinions, and advice from Black women who did feel called to speak upon their truth would more often than not lead to their death. After the murder of George Floyd, I knew that I needed to do something, to say something, anything. Black people only make up 13% of the entire United States, yet these things keep happening to us. I believe that the heart of racial tension in America is really due to an incredible misunderstanding, lack of communication, and a void of people who look like me being given a platform to speak their truth. Black people across the nation are doing any and everything they can to make a change for the better, but often our voices are stifled or overlooked, and to that I say, get louder. For anyone who's ever worked in service or retail, you know that some people just won't stop complaining until they get to the manager. This is a moment where the squeaky wheel gets the grease, really applies. So I invite all of you to get in touch with your inner Karen and keep demanding the changes you want to see in the world. If you saw me speak at any events over the summer, you know that my personal theme song is My Shot from Hamilton. I listen to this song anytime I need to get hyped, anytime my day has gone wrong, or anytime I lose sight of what I'm doing and why. If you have a song that does this for you already, power to you. If not, please feel free to use this as yours. That song means so much to me. And I know it's super fast, which is why I got a version with the lyrics, but I'm going to take you back through a couple more or again. And the ones that really speak to me are these New York City streets getting colder. I shoulder every burden every disadvantage I have learned to manage. I don't have a gun to brandish. And I'm going to stop right here on this point and just ask yourself, if the majority of people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th were Black, what would have happened? I don't have a gun to brandish. I walk the streets famished. The plan is to flame. Sorry, I can't even see it. The plan is to fan the spark into a flame, which is what I'm hoping I am doing here for you right now, which is what this song does for me. This is a line that just really, I think, speaks to what Black activism is, because I'm with you, but the situation is fraught. You've got to be carefully taught. If you talk, you're going to get shot, which is historically what has happened to Black people who get loud and try to bring attention to the problem at hand. And it's so interesting to me that granted Hamilton was written now, obviously, by Lin-Manuel Miranda, but I think that he really encapsulated what it was like being then and founding this country. And isn't it so funny that we haven't seemed to have learned from the mistakes of our past, and we're still fighting the same fight, which will lead to our downfall if we can't learn from the fall of the Roman Empire either. This one kills me. I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. When's it gonna get me? In my sleep, 7 feet ahead of me. And anytime I hear that in my sleep line, I think of Breonna Taylor. It literally happens. And for those of you who aren't Black or BIPOC in general, we think about it nonstop. We think about every decision that we're making because it's going to have consequences. Our consequences are different from yours, though. And at any given point in time, death can get us. And we have seen it, especially for Black people, under an array of situations where somehow it's just always appropriate in the situation, is what the news keeps telling us. I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. When's it going to get me? In my sleep, 7 feet ahead of me. If I see it coming, do I run or do I let it be? Is it like a beat without a melody? See, I never thought I'd live past 20, which is so true for so many BIPOC people. Because where we come from, some get half as many. Ask anybody why we live in fast and we laugh, reach for the flask. We have to make this moment last. That's plenty. Scratch that. This is not a moment. This is the movement. And I hope that what I'm saying here, and I hope that that in song also inspires you to do that. I'm sitting here speaking to you right now because I bet on myself and I refuse to back down. And I was able to get the attention of a local nonprofit, the Chuckanut Health Foundation. The person sitting here who obviously has technical difficulties just like you do, was then invited to write my own job description, which I'd never done before, and venture into a completely new arena where who I am and what I have to say holds the most value it ever has. This is not a humble brag. I am telling you this because right now our country is both the most polarized it has ever been, but also truly ready to start making amends for the past 500 years of transgressions. This is the first time in the history of our species that we have both the space for BIPOC citizens to engage the public at large and the technology to reach every corner of the earth. If you have something to say, anything to contribute to this conversation, make your voice be heard. You have no idea what it would lead to or could lead to. As you decide how it is that you're going to contribute to our society in a meaningful way, we will have someone doing the exact job that you were made for. The current climate of America is not one where anyone gets to sit on the sideline anymore. We are all living at the end of days in one way or another, and this may very well be the last chance our species has at ensuring our survival. We are the apex predator on a planet which we are not overly skilled at taking care of and clearly do not know how to manage. We consume without giving back or thinking about consequences, and we are now all living on a 100-year countdown to the only planet we have ever lived on and the only one that we know of that can sustain life. We are bringing about its own end. So whatever pops up about you on the interwebs, whatever the haters have to say on social media, whatever your own insecurities are breathing down your neck at all times, it is 100% not true. Unless it kills you, unless it actually kills you, you will unfortunately live to fight another day. And as we embark on days with these fights, these days seem to go on for much longer than even I anticipated. But please know there is a direct correlation between the amount of blood, sweat, tears, and time you spend on any endeavor, and the largest sacrifices lead to the largest payouts. The very last lesson, your guess is as good as mine. Really, truly, and honestly, find a way to get paid to do what you love, or find something that you enjoy doing hours on end. My path does not have to be yours. And at the heart of this, I really want you to walk away with two things. Anything else is just icing. Just because people are older or more experienced than you does not mean they are right. And while we are standing in the rubble that has fallen down around us, over the past decades, it would seem very clear to me that the experienced way of doing it isn't working. So if we as a society want to see a drastic change, we are in dire need of people who think differently. And I bet some of you are here right now. Second thing I really, really want you to take away, do not subscribe to other people's ideals of perfect anything. Stop making yourself smaller to make other people feel better. You deserve to take up as much space as you want, and we probably very much need to hear your voice. If you want to contribute to living in a better society and possibly save the one planet we have, I suggest we get to work. Dive in head first, ask people more knowledgeable than you along the way, but always remember, there is no secret adult answer to every question book that we are hiding from you. Every day you get to get up and decide what it is you want to do with your time and energy, which are the most valuable natural resources this planet has to offer. Just ask Neo or Morpheus. You are here in this place and at this time, and the moments are incredibly fleeting. It is a miracle that you are even here. Do what you love, stay true to yourself, know that you are worthy, and question everything. Everything else will fall into place. Ta-da! Woo! And there you have it. That was my mind, how it works, how I got to where I am, the things that I think about, and I hope it was helpful, useful, enlightening, insightful, any combination of those things.
Thank you so much, Kristina. We have a few questions in the Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in there and we will get to as many as we can before 6:30 rolls around. But we have a great question first from Rachel, wondering, what are your suggestions in dealing with white people who announce their form of activism or advocacy as superior to someone else's? Something that they've seen in activism coming up pretty frequently.
Superior to someone else's, I would ask them, why do they think that someone needs to be superior to other people in general? If you're focused on the work, I feel like ego shouldn't really be coming into play at all. But with that said, I will say it takes every kind of activist to make a difference. You need people who are willing to start protests. You do need people who are willing to rattle cages and go as extreme to be just on the other side of not harming anyone. And then you have activists like me where I want to focus on changing policy. Interracial marriage was illegal in places up to 1967. We look back now and think that that's crazy, but it was actually the Supreme Court changing the policy that made it more acceptable in mainstream America. And then we have Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., and then we have Malcolm X, and then we have Angela Davis, and then we have so many other people. We all need to be doing this at the same time. So I guess I would say if someone is getting the job done, let's not critique or question them. Let's see how we can support them, because essentially we're all working on the same thing.
Thank you. One more question from Rachel was, what do you think are the primary issues Whatcom County faces currently that we need to be paying urgent attention to?
Well, and this is not on Whatcom County. Race equity across the world at a certain point is kind of what we're talking about. And what I am personally focused on as I am a Black woman. But I would say for Whatcom County, I really think we have to go, and the rest of the United States, I think we have to go all the way back to the beginning. And start holding promises to our Indigenous populations as well. I've said a couple times in other arenas that it's nice that Black Lives Matter is the tagline and it looks good on the sign and the flag and whatever it may be, but to me, it's not about Black lives. That slogan to me embodies everyone who's ever been wronged. And unfortunately, that's just about every culture and ethnicity in this country. So race equity across the nation, Indigenous rights across the nation, Whatcom County specifically needs to really look at those. Just because we're doing better than other areas doesn't mean we're doing as good as we could be doing. And then the last one that really seems to be on the top of everyone's minds is obviously homelessness. We've just seen a lot of turmoil over it for years. Really, I'm saddened that every year the city knows that they're holding a place for a homeless strategies workshop around winter. Winter comes the same time every year. So if we keep putting a Band-Aid on it, we will just perpetually be in the cycle. And it's always a lot more expensive to put the cost in up front to do the work for systemic change. But if we don't, we will just keep bleeding time, money, resources, and actively losing people. And that seems like the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Another question, as someone who is extremely active in the local community, what do you do in your downtime to decompress and recharge?
I personally got a mental and health well-being coach to help specifically with that. I am a podcast junkie. I listen to more than my fair share of true crime. I also do a lot of just like documentary, in-depth research things. I'll say off the top that my favorites are My Favorite Murder. Shout out to Karen and Georgia. They're the absolute best. The Power, the Maxwells. I'm going to tell you all of this all of you right now. That's about Ghislaine Maxwell and her history, the woman who was always associated with Jeffrey Epstein. So that's been really, really interesting and exciting. And I will give you all my podcast recommendations at a later date. But to be quite honest, 2020 turned the world upside down. It was hard enough to leave your house and feel safe as a Black person before George Floyd, and then the turmoil that ensued after that. It's exhausting. To go outside. Every situation I'm in, I think of the 2, 3, 4 things that could happen that would end in the police being called and me being killed on accident. So I sadly spend a lot of time indoors, even though the sun's coming back out finally. But I just try to get educated. Obviously, after we've been through my brain dump, I'm interested in a lot of things, but information is number one. So yes, documentaries, podcasts, books, and just trying to keep my sanity as we live through history, which is exhausting.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for answering that. Kind of on that same line, do you have any suggestions for how individuals of color can stay engaged in politics and activism without burning themselves out?
Oh, I don't, because I have not done that. I'm so tired, y'all. I'm so tired. And I say yes to entirely too many things. And I am defaulting on responsibilities I put on myself because I want to be everywhere at once. I would say find what you're interested in. You can decide that you want to take on activism as a whole, and that is a very, very wide umbrella. So if you can find a niche under which you can contribute the most, is most easily accessible for you, or you have the most real life experience with, I would gear towards that avenue, because as I mentioned earlier, people are, as you start to get out, people are gonna want to ask you for your opinion. And so if you can get yourself a good side hustle on that by using what you know in your heart to be true, to soften hearts and minds of people that don't look like us and need help understanding what it is that we go through. I feel like that's the best way that you can contribute. Just stay authentically you, and don't let them put you in a box or tell you that you've got to do it this way or that way to be successful. Focus on what you're good at, and the rest will fall into place, but only carry as much as is comfortable. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question would be, how can university students use their power to advocate for change within the university structure and within their communities?
You just have to keep knocking. It's your inner Karen. If you bring up something that is valid, and or you've done research of programs or anything across the country that has worked in other sectors, and you bring it to the attention of your schools, and they kind of brush it off, just keep hammering away. They, the powers that be, the people in power, it's not their fault that they're there. And for some of them, they are not aware of the circumstances for us yet still going on in general. And you're going to have to use a couple different tactics to get in every door until you really find out what the best tools for you personally are in your toolkit. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, get loud, just keep getting louder. We're running out of time. We have 100 years on this planet if things stay the same. So we might as well go out with a bang. What do you have to lose by making sure that what you have to say and information you have to offer are valued at the highest level? You as a human being deserve that. So make sure that you make them know or let them know that you're not going anywhere until you at least have a full discussion, or they give you reasons as to why not. If you are speaking from a place where you experience this, you are the professional in the room, and never forget that.
Thank you. What is your advice for white folks who want to help end the systemic racism we face daily?
This question comes up.
Yes.
Sorry. Yep. I get this question a lot. And there's so many things you can do, and you can Google 1,000 answers for you to help exactly where you are and at what level and capacity available. What I am asking of you, and what would be most valuable for me right here and right now in Whatcom County, is I need you all to have the uncomfortable conversations with people who are still blue line, all lives matter, Trump is our hero, and Confederate flag flying, any of those. If you work with them, you go to school with them, they are your weird uncle at Thanksgiving. You are in rooms that I can't get into because of what I look like, and would be afraid to get into for my own personal safety. And anything that I have to say, they are not going to hear me when they are so far from center. So if you can get in there and you can just kind of whittle them down to at least they'd be willing to admit that racism is an issue. And that's the other one, people who don't see race. We need them to see it, and we need them to see it because we need to have the discussion that people are treated differently because of their races. And if you just check out and refuse to see it, we're never going to get anywhere. So that is the number one thing I could ask of you. as we're building this racial equity commission, there are 242,000 people in Whatcom County, and I will talk to each and every one of them individually if I have to, but that would take all of my time and I would be utterly exhausted. So if you can help me with that, that's a great start. And I think that works across the world, as every pocket and every corner is having the same conversation. If you can be the first through the door, and you can take the temperature for us and kind of lead them into the direction of equity and equality, I would thank you from the bottom of my heart.
So you mentioned, again, the Whatcom County Racial Equity Commission. There was a question if you have some key goals and plans as you begin work on the commission.
Yes, for me personally, when this idea dawned on, shout out Su Ling Zhao, and I just happened to be sitting next to her having the same discussion. I came from a place where I need the information. The government runs on our tax dollars. They take money out of your paycheck and they give it to people that are elected into position and are supposed to be more knowledgeable than us, and they decide how to spend it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So after I accidentally ended up with the meetings with the police chief over a story for another time, and I had Sue with me, we realized that information we were asking for and should be readily available to us as a citizen might as well have been coming in Greek. It didn't make any sense. So at my heart, for me, the Racial Equity Commission is just to get the information of how well are we doing? Who are we missing? Where can we improve? Just to get a baseline of realistically, where are we at? How are BIPOC community members being treated in our own community? And data and numbers are what are going to tell us that in a form of way that we can communicate it to the government to fix it. And I'm saying that specifically because the lived experience of the BIPOC population is also incredibly important, but unfortunately that doesn't translate in to government ordinances. So what the rest of the Racial Equity Commission will be doing, and the part that's not just born out of my heart and mind, is talking to the community, figuring out what is happening to you, BIPOC community members on the ground, that you are dealing with, you are struggling with. The REC will then take that concern and look at it through a government lens of how can we fix it for you? How many other people are experiencing this? And I'm going to steal this from Su Ling as well. We were having a discussion the other day, and she talked about curb cuts when speaking on handicap accessibility. And what we're essentially trying to do is go through government documentation and curb cut so that everyone has the ability to step up and get up on the same curb together without other things hindering you just because of the color of the skin that you were born in.
Thank you. Yeah, I think people are very excited to hear about that commission and see where it goes. So awesome to hear about that. On the other hand, you have worked a lot in uplifting local elections and getting involved in local elections in Whatcom County. So do you have any advice for ways that you have been involved or ways that you suggest others can get involved?
It is so simple. I just need you all to pay attention. I bet more of you could name every single Kardashian family member than your state representative, which is not on you. It is how America has taught us. And that is a different section I could do an hour on at a later date and time. But we are here because we stopped paying attention. We took our eyes off the road, and we put it into cruise control, and we decided that those who we elected into office had it, they're taking care of it, and it's going to be fine. Because politicians know better than us. They don't. They're just human beings like you. They absolutely make mistakes, and they definitely have biases, whether or not they acknowledge them or do not. So we collectively need to be paying attention to what is happening locally. I hope everyone here voted in the presidential election, at least for president. And then I bet you got real ballot fatigue as you had to keep scrolling down and turn it over. But every single one of those other votes was just as important, if not more, than the president, because that affects us right here, right now, almost instantaneously. So please, if you want to get involved in politics, just start paying attention. And when you see something, say something, and get to work. It's just that simple.
Thank you. Along with getting involved, is there some way that students could get involved with Racial Equity Commission?
There are, and we have announcements coming soon. Right now, I am just going to drop the actual page that we have into the chat for everyone to grab. And that's where we'll be doing most of our updates. We will be opening it to the community, and there will be plenty, whoops, hold on, not privately. There will be plenty of people, or plenty of chances to jump in where you fit in. It's gonna take all of us. This is a job I hope that eventually, once it's done correctly, we don't have to talk about anymore. So it's absolutely going to take all of us, and we want you to be part of it. So just keep an eye out on the Checking Out Health Foundation tab for our page, and you can follow my social media if that helps. I say a lot of things there. I'll drop my Facebook into the chat as well if you want to keep tabs on me. But yes, keep your ears and eyes peeled, and reach out, send me messages, whatever you need. I'm stepping up and stepping out first so that I can shatter that ceiling for you. So anything that I can make easier for you, I absolutely want to do.
Well, thank you so much, Kristina. We're at 6:30, so we had a few more questions, but if people want to share your questions on Kristina's social media there, like what she mentioned. Also, again, this will be going out, this recording will be going out tomorrow, so you can always watch again, gain some more insight, soak up all the information again. But I just want to thank you so much, Kristina, for speaking. We really appreciated hearing from you. And yeah, if there's anything you want to add before we close.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being with me for my very first keynote on Zoom with the first slideshow I've made in probably 15 years. And I just hope this helps. I hope it inspires. I hope it was beneficial to you in perpetuity forever. And just don't give up. We are here and we can do this, but we have to do it together.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone so much for being here. I am putting the OCE's social media info in the chat, so you can stay up to date with things there. We'll be sure to post when this video goes up, and so you can share it around with everybody and just stay up to date with what we have going on. But thanks so much, Kristina, and thanks so much everyone for being here.
Thank you.